Beautiful day, the day after 4th of July as of filming this, and today we're going to get into a lot of the DeFi hacks that have been happening lately. Now, luckily in 2024, the DeFi hacks have dropped since 2023 by over 56%, which is great news. However, there has been an uptick in private key hacks, which we're going to talk about the distinction there and how you can use this to help protect yourself and make sure that you are not interacting with any bad protocols, and even if you do, how to remedy that situation so you do not exploit or lose your private keys. So let's jump right into it. First, I kind of want to cover the different type of attack vectors that most people are using when it comes to hackers or people exploiting DeFi protocols, draining wallets, doing all those kinds of things. And really what I want to cover is specifically what those attack vectors are, how you can recognize them, and kind of what we can do here. So there's a few things that I'm going to cover, and then we're going to get into how this applies to you specifically. There's an article by Chainalysis that came out recently, and there's a few things in here I'm going to quote or kind of cover so we can contextualize it and make sure that it's applicable to what you're doing and what I'm doing in terms of keeping our crypto and our private keys safe. So the attack vectors affecting DeFi are diverse and constantly evolving. It is therefore important to classify them to understand how hacks occur and how protocols might be able to reduce their likelihood in the future. According to Halpern, DeFi attack vectors can be placed in one of two categories: vectors originating on-chain and vectors originating off-chain. I'm going to stop there real quick. So really, there's two ways that people can get hacked. If it's off-chain, that would be, say, in person, exploiting a seed phrase, exploiting an actual private key and extracting that. And then, of course, there's on-chain attack vectors, which can attack directly at the protocol level, different DeFi protocols, smart contracts, and the like. On-chain, and going further into this, on-chain attack vectors stem not from vulnerabilities inherent to blockchains themselves, but rather from vulnerabilities in the on-chain components of a DeFi protocol, such as their smart contracts. These aren't a point of concern for centralized services, as centralized services don't function as decentralized apps within publicly visible code the way DeFi protocols do. Off-chain attack vectors stem from vulnerabilities outside of the blockchain. One example could be the off-chain storage of private keys in, say, a faulty cloud storage solution, and therefore apply to both DeFi protocols and centralized services. So before we get into the specific attack vectors here, there's one thing I want to point out. A lot of these DeFi protocols that have been hacked, after it's gone through an investigation, it was discovered that a lot of these code builders are actually storing these private keys in the cloud, which is, as you know, a huge no-no. You never want to store these things online in any way, shape, or form. You always want to have your private keys in cold storage, whether you're the owner of a smart contract or anything else, whether you're front-facing or personal-facing. You basically just want to ensure that all of your private keys are always offline. So that's the biggest attack vector and the biggest vulnerability that you can get. And obviously this would be considered an off-chain attack vector, even though the private keys were stored online. So there's a couple of subcategories that I'm going to define for you here real quick and how they apply, right? So there's the protocol exploitation, and this is when an attacker exploits vulnerabilities in a blockchain component of a protocol, such as ones pertaining to validator, the protocol's virtual machine, or in the mining layer. And this would be an on-chain attack vector. An insider attack is the second one. This is when obviously when an attacker working inside a protocol, such as a rogue developer, uses privileged keys or other private information to directly steal funds. Now, this is considered an off-chain attack vector, and again, this happens or could happen with any developer, any project, whether they're disgruntled. It doesn't matter what their motivations are. Obviously, the motivations for a lot of these are financial, but it could be a multitude of reasons. But you always want to make sure that you have either multi-sig set up or you decentralize the private keys when you're dealing with DeFi protocol, smart contracts, and the like. Obviously, the next one, number 3, we're coming in at is phishing. This is when an attacker tricks users into signing permission, often done by supplanting a legitimate protocol, allowing the attacker to spend tokens on the user's behalf. Phishing may also happen when an attacker tricks users into directly sending funds to a malicious smart contract. Now, again, this is also an off-chain attack vector, but again, we cover phishing, we cover social engineering, a lot of these things in my recent videos. things that you also want to look out for. Okay, there's a few more. So there's contagion, and that would be when an attacker exploits a protocol due to vulnerabilities created by a hack in another protocol. Contagion also includes hacks that are closely related to hacks in other protocols. Now this is an on-chain attack vector, and it's just simply as it sounds, it's basically using the same type of method that it's been used successfully in other protocol hacks. Of course, you have other factors like compromised servers. This is when an attacker compromises a server that is owned by a protocol, thereby disrupting the protocol's normal workflow or gaining knowledge to further exploit the protocol in the future. Also off-chain. The next one's pretty basic, a wallet hack. This is when an attacker exploits a protocol that provides a custodial or wallet services and subsequently acquires information about the wallet's operation. This is also another off-chain attack. You have price manipulation hack, which we'll get into in a second. It's when an attacker exploits a smart contract vulnerability or utilizes a flawed oracle that does not reflect accurate asset price, facilitating the manipulation of a digital token's price. So this is where you have a front-facing node or an oracle that's displaying a specific price, intentionally giving wrong information to have people either panic sell or panic buy based on the front-facing information that they have, and it's pretty obvious how this can happen here, and it happens all the time. Just a few more things here. We have, of course, the basic smart contract exploitation. This is when an attacker exploits a vulnerability in a smart contract code, which typically grants direct access to various control mechanisms of a protocol and token transfers. This would be an on-chain attack. There's a few more that we'll go into. We have a compromised private key. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is when an attacker acquires access to a user's private key and can occur through a leak or a failure in off-chain software, for example. Again, this can be mitigated by using a hardware wallet, which is a physical device required to sign a transaction, therefore relinquishing the private key. You have governance attacks. This is when an attacker manipulates a blockchain project with a decentralized governance structure by gaining enough influence or voting right to enact a malicious proposal. This is sort of like mutiny in a sense, but you can also do it on various ways, and this is also considered an on-chain attack. And then the last one here is third-party compromise. So this is when an attacker gains access to an off-chain third-party program that a protocol uses, which provides information that can later be used on to exploit. This is off-chain. So this is what a lot of developers do, is they consider it to be an insurance policy. Let's say you're a developer, you're working on a team, and let's say that you get in an argument, you get in a disagreement. This is sort of something you can have as a rogue developer in your back pocket as a way to exploit the code in the event that down the road you want to take advantage of that based on whatever motivation, whether it be revenge, financial, all of the above, it doesn't really matter. So basically, I wanted to cover all these different types of attacks and exploits that are going on. Now, some of them relate directly to the protocol, whether you're interacting with any DeFi smart contract, you're dealing with NFTs, you're dealing with tokens, you're creating your own coin or token, you're dealing with layer 2s, layer 3s, layer 0s, it really doesn't matter, but most importantly, protecting your own private key as a user. So when you interact with MetaMask on a smart contract, maybe to buy a token, or maybe to play a game, maybe to do anything like that, purchase an NFT, you're dealing with the smart contract layer, and there's a lot of ways that we just talked about that theoretically could be exploited. Now, as an end user, there's not much you can do from a security standpoint by interacting with it other than using things that we talked about, like the new wallet guard that MetaMask is including, which will let you know if a smart contract is being exploited and if it has malicious code. When you're dealing with private key security and you're dealing with these different DeFi protocols, you want to also make sure that if you interact with it or you expose your private keys to it by interacting with it, meaning you sign a transaction, you also want to ensure that you're signing the transaction, storing your private keys offline. Even if on the protocol layer or the smart contract layer things are actually bad, at least your private keys and you as a person are not being exposed and are not having any issues with your own attack vector of your own private keys being used against you, being hacked, being stolen, and therefore being useless in your particular use case. So like I said, check out yesterday's video. I'll link it at the end here. There's new AI technologies and things that can scan smart contracts and scan different DeFi protocol layers to at least do a sweep to see if there's any exploitive code, if there's any bad experiences with previous users, if it's been reported, that kind of thing. And basically you just want to make sure that you're taking that extra step to protect yourself, because this can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. When you're dealing with DeFi, understand those risks, and more importantly, make sure that if you're using MetaMask, I highly recommend that you use a hardware wallet in that interaction so that your private keys are safe for each transaction that you use, and you use your hardware device to sign that transaction, just giving you peace of mind. Plenty of hardware wallets use MetaMask. The most popular ones are, of course, Ledger and Trezor, and you can also use Keystone Pro, which is another air-gapped device, and Engrave Zero is coming soon, in a few months later this year. So all in all, just wanted to kind of give you what the different ways that attackers, hackers, exploiters are targeting the protocol level and the personal user level, so you can kind of be aware of these. You can come back and reference this video in the future. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you don't want to wait for my next video to come out and this was helpful, please subscribe. Check out this video right here on the screen, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Crypto Renegade out.